Hi there, I'm just starting a little bit early this morning just to check everything's working. If there's anybody online already, maybe Charlotta's there, just want a thumbs up to double check you can hear me okay before we start the class this morning. Fantastic, thank you whoever just sent me that little message. We've got a couple of minutes before 10 o'clock, so I'm going to hang out here and just wait for a few more people to join us. So before we start officially at 10 o'clock, I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm Caroline and I have been practicing yoga for, over 20 years actually. And I did the teen yoga course with Charlotta last year and really enjoyed it. So I've been teaching teens for a couple of years now actually, here in Edinburgh, that's where I am. So it's pretty gloomy today, it's pretty grey. I'm wearing a little bit of colour. I'm known for always wearing dark colours, but I put a little bit of colour on for the video today. And my classes usually take place on Tuesday and Wednesday evening. So I've been trying to do a couple of online classes with my teens that I teach regularly, but it's been lovely to be invited by Charlotta to teach this class this morning. So I'm going to just invite you to come down to the ground, to the mat, whatever you're practicing on. Make sure you've got a little bit of padding underneath you for this first pose, because we're just going to start in the Makrasana, in crocodile pose. So I'm just checking we're pretty much on time. So Makrasana pose is a pose I often start with. It's a very grounding pose, and it's lovely just to notice and observe the breath. So to begin with, you need to stack your arms. The fingertips are reaching the elbows, so they're stacked on top of each other, and your forehead is going to come onto your forearms when you lie on your front. I'll just take my glasses off there. Coming onto your front, I'm going to stack the arms like I just demonstrated and pop your forehead on your forearms. There's a little bit of a gap between the feet, just a little bit. Traditionally, the toes turn out, but my body doesn't like that, so I just allow my feet to flop down. So just working with your body this morning. And we're going to come down into crocodile pose. Now the eyes can stay open, you can look towards the floor, or you can close your eyes and just bring that concentration inwards. And once you've found your comfortable position in crocodile, just begin by observing your breath. So no judgment, just observing where it's going. You'll notice that the belly is pushing into the mat or the floor. It's restricted as we're lying on our front. And you might notice the breath is moving into the lower back. Notice anywhere else you can feel the breath. In the lungs, noticing the rib cage expand in all directions, forwards, outwards, backwards. And maybe you can feel your shoulders or your collarbones moving slightly as well. We're just using the breath as an anchor this morning. using it to come back to if the mind wanders off. And it helps that you can feel your belly pushing into the mat or the floor. And maybe you notice the breath is a little cool as it enters the body. And as you exhale, the breath has been warmed up by the body. Notice any feelings of tightness or tension in the body. So again, not judging at all, just noticing, visualising the breath, reaching those areas and just softening any tightness or tension. In the morning we tend to be a little bit tighter and stiffer because we've not had the whole day of movement and warming up. So with that in mind, just remembering to practice this morning with a little kindness. Ahimsa is the Sanskrit word for compassion. So just being kind to your body this morning. And from here we're going to push back into child's pose. So gently pushing back and coming into child's pose. So crocodile's a back bend. And we're just doing a counter pose to bend the spine in the opposite direction. There's a few different versions. Maybe you want to stack your hands and have your hands under your forehead. Maybe you'd like to bring the head to the mat and have the hands behind you. Wherever you are, encouraging your glutes, your gluteus muscles, to reach and sit on the heels. So taking a moment here in child's pose. Again, the belly's restricted. So the breath is moving into the side of the lungs. Just notice where the breath is going. Over half our breath goes into the lungs and half of that breath goes into the back of the lungs. So really directing the breath there. And from here, we're going to take our knees apart. So we're going to come into a wide-legged child's pose. My big toes are together, my knees are quite wide apart. So I've made a bit of a V shape here with my thighs. And I'm going to creep my hands forward. So just very slowly creeping the hands forward, coming to wherever you can this morning. Try to keep the glutes on the heels. So rather than lifting up, trying to keep the glutes down and coming down. And maybe you just look to the mat. Maybe you're able to bring your forehead to the mat. So just coming to wherever you can this morning. Try and encourage the shoulders away from the ears. Sometimes they come up towards the ears. So dropping the shoulders away. Focusing on the breath and creeping the fingers forward. So maybe you can take the fingers forward a little bit further and feel a stretch down both sides of the body. And then we're going to take our hands to the left. So we're just moving the hands to the left-hand side. We're almost in line with the left knee. The head's off the floor, we're just looking to the floor here, creating a little bit more of a side stretch. Maybe you can reach that right hand and creep it further a little bit more. And then we'll come back through centre and go over to the right hand side. Don't worry if you've done one side slightly different to me. It doesn't matter which way, we're all going to do both sides with everything we do. Reaching through, stretching the left hand side. And then we'll come back to centre again and creep the hands up. So I wanted us to work on our wrists a little bit this morning. So we're just going to take a couple of wrist rolls. Rolling the wrists around, maybe integrating the fingers there as well. Giving the shoulders a roll. And we're going to bring the palms of the hands to the floor. So we have lots of bandhas in yoga, they're kind of body locks. And this is Hasta Bandha. We're going to have a hand lock here. So when you put your hands on the floor throughout this class this morning, just make sure they're really flat on the floor and the middle fingers are roughly pointing forwards. I'll direct you in each pose, but we want to keep the hands nice and flat here. I'm still in that same pose, my big toes are together, my knees are wide apart, and my fingers are pointing forwards. So we're here. And we're going to have the inner elbows inwards here. And then we're going to change that positioning so the fingers point outwards. Just taking one breath here. And then we'll change that position again so the fingers are pointing inwards. And then we'll change that position again to point the fingers towards the body. Now this is quite tough, this can be quite stiff, so just again, be mindful of your body. Maybe your wrists and the palms don't come all the way down there, maybe they're here, but just making sure you're breathing through any tightness. So we're stretching the fingers here and the wrists, and you might even feel this in the forearms as well. Gently lifting that off, and we'll give the fingers, and then we'll roll again. We're going to just work on the feet before we come into cat-cow. So this is a pose I teach in all my classes actually, adults and teens. And we're going to stretch the tops of the feet. So we're kneeling here, and I'm going to make fists with my hands and have my fists around the knee area. And then we're going to lift up the knees. Now maybe that feels okay, that feels quite good. Maybe you want to bring the fists back a little bit further, and you can lift your knees up. So we're just lifting up the knees here. Maybe you know you can feel a little bit more, and you can come all the way back and create a balance. If you get here, and this is pretty tight in the feet, just know that you can come back down and give it another go. So try not to hold anything if it feels a little painful or just too much, but wherever you are, just breathing. And I guarantee if you do this every day, give you about 2 weeks, you'll come to this lovely balance. And we're just stretching the tops of the feet. We don't often do very much with our feet. They do so much for us, but we often don't look after them. So we'll drop the knees down, and then we're going to come in to stretch our toes. So we're going to tuck our toes under, we're kneeling here. I'm going to physically put my little toe down because it doesn't like to do that on its own. And then again, maybe you're just leaning forwards a little bit. That's quite enough for the toes. It's a quite strong toe stretch. And then maybe you can come and sit back. Again, if the toes are quite tight, just know that you can come out and come back slowly. And just ensuring you're breathing here as well, especially if there's tightness in the toe joints. Just breathing through that, using the breath as an anchor. Just one more breath. And then gently unhook your toes and feel that light relief. We're going to come into cat-cow. So again, thinking about the hands, really spread the hands to keep the hands and the wrists nice and safe. If your wrists are sore this morning, you can always make fists if that feels better, or come down onto your elbows. So we're spreading the hands, the middle fingers are pointing forwards, shoulders away from ears, and my knees are about hip distance apart. We're going to breathe in and just look forwards and tip the tailbone up to the ceiling. So we're dropping the belly here, and then we're breathing out, pushing through the hands and creating a bit of stretch across the top of the back. So this almost looks like an angry or scared cat. We're breathing in, we're looking forwards, dropping the belly, sitting bones up to the ceiling, thinking of those sacred cows with their big bellies wandering around the streets of India. And then we're breathing out to push through into the hands and look towards the knees. So just working with your breath now. Don't worry too much if you get it mixed up in and out. Just make sure you're breathing. We're just going to do 2 more after this one. So we're waking up the spine, creating a little bit of space between the vertebrae, stretching into the trapezius muscles, which are at the top of the back. And one last one. And coming back to neutral. Maybe you need to do a little wrist roll, just take a break from the wrists here. We're going to come back, making sure the middle fingers are pointing forwards and the hands are flat on the floor. And I'm going to take my right foot back first. It doesn't matter which you start with actually. I'm just on my toes and I'm reaching back with my heels. So you're going to feel that hopefully in the calf muscles just there. So just lengthening out the legs a little here. Remember, if the wrists are a little bit sore, you can come down to elbows. Reaching through the heel. Gently coming up, and we'll do 4 breaths on the other side. So we're reaching through, it's just the toes on the floor, reaching through the heel there. And just notice that there's quite a big difference between the two sides. So we've all got very different bodies to work with, different skeletons, and nobody's got a symmetrical body. And you'll notice that one side is often more dominant or more used than the other. It's a bit like being right-handed or left-handed. So muscles can be a little bit tighter and ligaments on one side rather than the other. So just noticing that difference. And gently coming back in. Again, if you need a break on your wrists, just give your wrists a little roll. We're going to come up into a first downward dog. So spread the hands again, make sure those middle fingers are pointing forwards. If you know you're super bendy, so you're hypermobile, you can take a slight turn in. That will just help with the rotation of the shoulders. So inner elbows are pointing inwards, hands are about shoulder width apart, and then we're tucking the toes under and coming up into our first downward dog. Keep the knees bent to begin with, and pushing into the hands, creating some length in the spine. And just here, we're just going to pedal the feet. So it's similar to what we've just done. We're just stretching through the calf muscles, or all the muscles that make up the hamstrings. They're going to be a little bit tighter in the morning. We're just warming them up. And then slowly coming down, just taking a moment in child's pose. So whichever version of child's pose feels most comfortable for you, take a moment there. Just allow the body to reset, to rest. And then slowly make your way up into a second downward dog. So make this one either dynamic, so moving the legs again, or maybe you want it to be a static pose now. So spreading the fingers, tucking the toes, have a micro bend in the knee just to keep the knees safe this morning. And maybe you're moving, maybe you're static. And remembering it's not so much about getting the heels down to the mat or the floor. Some of us will never get our heels to the floor, it's just the way our skeletons are made. But what we're trying to do is create some length in the spine here. So pushing away with the hand, it's almost like you're trying to make the mat longer. And trying to encourage the shoulders away from the ears, the shoulder blades back down the back. Make sure the head and the neck soft, relaxed. And from here we're going to walk our hands to our feet. So on the next inhalation, just starting to walk the hands towards the feet and bend the knees a little bit more. And we're coming into our Uttanasana pose, forward fold. So have a softness in the knees. Have a look at the feet. I always teach us there's a little bit of a gap between the feet, hip distance apart, but just check the toes are pointing forwards and the feet are parallel. So it looks like they're on train tracks. Allow the head and neck to relax. And maybe you can reach up to the ceiling with the sitting bones a little bit more. So straightening the legs a little bit. Just create a bit more of a stretch down the back of the legs. And then to come up, we're going to take our time, just because we've been down, head down for a little while now. We're going to bend into the knees, bring our hands to our hips, push through the feet to slowly come up to standing, and allow our hands to come back down. I hope you're doing okay. We're going to do a sun salutation now, and I've added in a few little extra bits and bobs there, so it might be very different to some of the 10 o'clock live classes you've done this week. We're going to start in mountain pose. And again, the way I like to teach this is with feet apart. So I will demonstrate side on, but I'm just going to show you my mountain pose this morning. My feet are parallel, so it's a bit like their own train tracks, and they're hip distance apart. So you can either track your big toes to these bones here, the top of the iliac crest bones here, just at the top. So they're tracking down. Or sometimes I bring two fists together and I use that as a bit of a measurement between my feet. So that can give us a rough estimate of hip distance apart. And there's a softness in the knees, and that's the mountain pose. That's going to be our starting position. So I'm going to come up to the top of the mat. Coming into mountain pose, lifting the toes up, spreading the toes. We're going to breathe in and reach the hands up, the palms are facing inwards. And then we're going to breathe out and folding forwards from the hips. So it's a bit like you're reaching with the chest and the chin, coming forwards. Have a micro bend in the knees. We're just keeping the knees safe this morning. Allow the head, the neck to relax. We're going to take a couple more breaths in Uttanasana, our forward fold. Maybe you can feel some more length in the back of the legs now. We're going to breathe in and take our hands to our shins or knees, shoulders away from ears. This is our flat back position. So we're looking at the floor, almost imagining we've got a tray of drinks on our backs. So lovely flat back. And making sure the neck is in line with the spine here. On the next exhalation, folding forwards, so breathing out to fold forwards into our forward fold. We're going to step back with our right foot to begin with. So we're stepping back with the right foot, quite a long step back, and dropping that right knee. It's almost like a runner's lunge, Anjaneyasana. And just take a moment to check this left knee is over the left ankle. So it's not overshooting. We're just going to keep that really safe again this morning. So the knee is over the ankle, shoulders away from ears. We're going to breathe in, bring our hands to our hips. So just find your balance here this morning. Find a drishti point, we call it, a focus point. And then if you would like to, you can bring the arms up. The palms are facing inwards, and maybe even taking the gaze to the ceiling. Try not to take the head back too far. Reaching up to the ceiling. Remembering to breathe, noticing where the breath goes in this pose. On the next exhalation, we'll bring the hands together to heart center here. We're going to do a twist. So we're going to bring the right elbow to the left knee. So breathing in and taking this pose here. Just a really simple twist. It's almost like you're trying to bring the chest around to face the ceiling. Twists are really good for massaging our internal organs. And then coming back to centre. We're going to come into lizard pose now. So we'll take our hands just on the inside, so the big toe side of the left foot. And I'm wriggling my left foot out towards the left edge of the mat. And I'm gently coming down through centre here. So I'm dropping my torso, my body through. Now maybe you don't get very far. It doesn't really matter where you get to, but you're going to feel a little bit of a stretch in the hips, inside the hips here, in inner thighs, pelvis area. So just coming where you can do this morning. And then we'll creep the hands back, wiggle that left foot back in, and we're going to step into our plank pose from here. So we'll tuck the right toes under, spread the hands and come into plank. So maybe you're on your knees, that's absolutely fine. Maybe you're in your full plank. Just make sure the belly button, you're pulling in the belly button towards the spine to support the lower back. Shoulders are away from ears. And then we'll drop down onto the knees, come through onto the chest. Have a little feel for where the shoulders are, hands are on the shoulders, elbows are tucked in, we're coming into cobra. So breathing in to come up. And just make it a baby cobra this morning. The elbows are bent, they're really tucked into the body. And then slowly coming down. Tip the hands back a little bit further, tuck the toes, come into our downward facing dog. So again, making the adjustments you need to. Maybe you still want some movement, so bending into the knees, or maybe you're happy to make it a static version of the pose. Wherever you are, have a micro bend in the knees. And then we're going to step forwards with our right foot. So I'm going to lift my right leg up here and I'm swinging it forwards. Don't worry if it takes a couple of steps. And then we're going to allow the left foot to become parallel with the right. So parallel feet, we're in our forward fold and a micro bend in the knees here. To come up, we're going to breathe in, bend into the knees, pushing into the feet, reaching up to the ceiling and bringing the hands down. Hope that was an okay pace for everybody. We're going to do everything on the other side. So I'm just coming to the other side of my mat so I can demonstrate from this side. So just reset the feet in your mountain position. So toes are really spread and you're grounding through the feet. So think of it as a sort of, you're trying to find an evenness in the body through the feet here. Dropping the shoulders. Lovely long spine. We're going to breathe in, reaching up and breathe out, folding forwards. Have that little bend in the knee. Allow the head, the neck to relax. We're breathing in to bring the hands to the shins, shoulders away from ears, flat back. Just looking, the gaze is towards the floor. Breathing out to fold forwards. And this time the left leg goes back. So take your time, the left leg is coming back. We're going to drop that knee and just make sure the right knee is over the right ankle. Just keeping the knees safe. When you're ready, breathing in, bringing the hands to your hips. And if you want a little bit more of a challenge, reaching up, the palms are facing inwards, shoulders away from ears, and then maybe taking the gaze up to the ceiling. Breathing into the lungs, expanding the rib cage. And then we'll bring the hands back together at heart centre. And we're going to do our twist. We're bringing the left elbow towards the right knee. So breathing in and twisting around. So maybe you don't get as far on this side. I definitely don't. So just notice that. Twisting the spine round. We're trying to bring the chest towards the ceiling. So it's almost facing the ceiling. And you can use that elbow on the outer thigh. So sort of push into it and give yourself some more movement. We'll gently come back through to centre. And then we're going to wriggle this right knee out to the sides a little bit. So lizard pose. And this is often tough in the morning because we haven't warmed up our hips and our hip flexors. So the right foot's gone out to the side and I'm just bending through the centre here. So I'm coming to wherever I can. You'll feel a stretch in the groin, the inner thighs, maybe the pelvis area, the glutes. It could be everywhere. Just waking up the hips. Creeping the hands back and wriggling that right foot just back to centre-ish on the mat or the floor. We're going to come into our plank pose. So spreading the hands, tucking the left toes, allowing that right foot to come back. Maybe you're on your knees here this morning, maybe you're in full plank. Just make sure you're a long line. So the glutes aren't up here, they're down here. Shoulders are away from the ears. We're dropping the knees, coming through onto the chest, and we're going to come into Cobra Pose. So just feel where your shoulders are, place the hands on your shoulders, tuck the elbows in, breathing in and coming up. Maybe you want to go a little bit further the second time, grounding through the pelvis and the hips. Just taking a couple of breaths here. And slowly coming down. This is where we tuck back into our downward facing dog. So the hands come back towards the chest area and we slowly come up. So again, making your downward dog. Thinking about the length in the spine. Maybe you're still feeling like you need some movement in the legs. Making sure the hands are spread. Shoulders are away from ears. And then from here, I'm going to lift my left leg up. We're lifting the left leg up and swinging it forwards. So bringing it forwards, and then the right foot is going to follow and become parallel with the left. So we're back into our forward fold with parallel feet. We'll bend into the knees, push through the feet to reach up and allow the hands to come down. So just take a moment, maybe a mountain pose to catch your breath. We'll take one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and just notice the heartbeat. Maybe your breath is a little bit faster. Sun salutations, Surya Namaskar, warming the body, creating some energy, some fire. Quite energetic. So just allowing the breath to slow down. Gently opening the eyes and bringing the hands back down to the sides of the body. I wanted to finish off with a twist today, and then we'll come into a very brief relaxation. So we're going to take one foot out. So I've got my left foot out here, and I'm going to bring my right foot across my left leg. The left toes are pointing up, and to create the twist, I'm going to hug my right knee with my left arm. So giving that a hug, the belly's going to be a little bit squashed here, and we're twisting round. So my right hand's behind me, I've got spider fingers just to push through, still keeping that length in the spine, lovely long neck, and then with the breath maybe turning to look over your right shoulder. Make sure your left toes are still active, they're still pointing up to the ceiling. So as I was saying earlier, twists are really good to encourage the space between the vertebrae, massaging the spine, but also to massage internal organs. So the whole digestive system, the pancreas, all the way almost to the heart. And then we're coming back to centre. And we'll do it all on the other side. So I've got my right leg out straight, toes are pointing up to the ceiling. My left foot's coming over my right. I'm going to hug my left knee with my right arm. So I've got the knee and the elbow here. It gives me quite a good little hook. And then I'm turning to my left hand side. So my left hand is going behind me and I'm looking over my left shoulder. So just making sure those right toes are still active, they're still pointing up to the ceiling. Breathing into the rib cage here. And then slowly coming back to centre. We'll unravel our knees. We're going to come down to the mat now, so we'll give the knees a little hug in Apanasana. Fingertips towards the feet, just give them a little hug. Maybe you want to make some circles. And then from here, we're just going to place the feet down on the floor. So we're semi-supine here. The toes are pointed forwards. There's a bit of a gap between the feet. Just making sure you're comfortable and bringing the hands to the belly. So this will just help us focus on the breath. Allow the shoulders to soften and the breath to slow down. Check in with the jaw. So just softening the jaw. Allow softness in the jaw and allow the tongue to drop into the bottom of your mouth. So just bringing our focus back to the breath, using the breath as an anchor. Allowing your belly the freedom to move with the breath, so allow it to really expand as you breathe in. And allow it to deflate, to shrink as you breathe out. Take a moment to notice how your body feels. If anything's changed, maybe you're noticing something different. Just notice how your mind feels and your breath feels after a half an hour yoga practice. Gently opening the eyes and then rolling over onto the right hand side. So take a moment there and then use your hands to push yourself up to sitting. So it's a little bit kinder rather than jerking the body up, just pushing yourself up to sitting. Thank you for joining me for that short yoga practice. I'm going to come a little bit closer because I've got a couple of well-being tips. I'll put my glasses so I can see a bit better. First well-being tip here is to massage our hands. I think all of us are washing our hands quite a lot in the current situation. So I've got a tray here with some sugar, a little bit of sugar. Any sugar will do. And I've got some olive oil, and I'm actually going to just quickly demonstrate because that's going to be the quickest way to show you. So it's the best time to do this is in the evening, so before you're going to bed, so you're not going to wash your hands again. And it's a really nice little ritual to massage your hands, but also moisturise them as well. It's great in the winter. I do this a lot in the winter. So I'm just taking half a spoonful of sugar here. I've got a teaspoon, so a little bit of sugar, and then I'm going to drop a little bit of oil into my hands as well. So just a little bit there. Oh, too much, but that's fine. And then I am massaging this into my hands. I should have probably taken my rings off, but never mind. I'm massaging my hands all the way around. So the sugar's a little bit exfoliating, but it's much gentler than salt. So I know some people have done this with salt before. Salt can be quite drying. Salt's a little bit, so sugar's a little bit kinder on the hands. And I'm massaging, it feels so nice. Massaging the oil around. It doesn't have to be olive oil, it can be vegetable oil or coconut oil. Rapeseed oil, you've got that in the cupboard. And then make sure you do in between, do all around the fingers and the nails, around the cuticles. You can do this on your feet as well if you want to, but really massaging it in. And the best way to finish it off, I would do it for a minute or two, just as long as it feels lovely, is to rinse your hands under warm water. I've just got an old face cloth here, damp face cloth, so I'm just going to give my hands a wipe there. But it feels really nice to then rinse your hands under warm water. So it might be that you can do this for somebody in your family as well. So it's quite nice to give somebody else a hand massage. I'll give my hands a little wipe. And my hands suddenly feel absolutely delightful and soft and moisturised. So if you do it at night, it just feels really, really nice. And it's a nice way to relax. You can really massage into the hands and give yourself a little bit of restful massage before you go to bed. I'm trying to remember everything I was going to tell you. The last thing I'm going to say is the Zen Challenge today. So the Zen Challenge today is to write a letter to someone who's in self-isolation. So you might well know somebody who's having to self-isolate. And rather than writing a physical letter, send it electronically. So it's a lovely Zen Challenge today. Maybe that's via text or WhatsApp, or maybe you can email somebody that you know that's self-isolating. But just writing a little note. I think communication and connection is key at the moment, which is why this is such a lovely thing to be doing this morning. And so that would really, really help somebody's mental health. If they're stuck in self-isolation, just to receive a letter, something to read from the outside world. So that's the Zen Challenge this morning. And just a little reminder that this is all going to be on the Yoga in Schools YouTube page from next week. So if you go to YouTube and look for Yoga in Schools, I know there's a link on the Teen Yoga Facebook page. You can always find the link just there. And if you like that and subscribe to that, you'll be able to find all these classes that Charlotte is kindly facilitating on there from next week. So thank you so much for joining me for yoga this morning. I'm going to bring my hands together at Heart Centre. Now I finish all my classes the same way. And this is a lovely way of joining both halves of the body together. Some people say it joins both hemispheres of the brain, so both sides of the brain as well. Just take a moment to thank yourself for getting up this morning and doing half an hour of yoga. Thanking yourself for being kind to your body, remembering that lovely word ahimsa, compassion. I'm going to take my hands up to my forehead to remind us to have kind thoughts, to my lips to remind us to have kind words, and back down to my heart centre to remind us to have kind actions. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you again at some point. I hope you have a lovely weekend, or as good as you can. Bye from me.